So there's a healthy form of suffering, and I believe that's when the suffering is self-induced. So when you decide that you're about to embark on a journey and you know there's going to be suffering and you accept it and you use that suffering as a way to break free and expand your limitations, that to me is a healthy form of suffering. And if you look at athletes, especially Olympic athletes, professional athletes, or athletes even trying to get to the professional level, they commit to a lot of suffering, especially a lot of physical suffering. And I believe what makes these athletes feel so confident and grounded and superior to others is because they know they have literally shed layers of themselves to become the person they are, right? It's having, doing, being. So they didn't have much in what they wanted to have. They wanted to have success. They wanted to be athletes. So they did a bunch of stuff. They worked out 3 times a day. Kobe would work out 3 times a day. And every year he would sit down with his trainer and they would go through what it would take in his eyes to become the best basketball player ever. And in Kobe's eyes, his trainer told him actually not to do this. But in Kobe's eyes, he was like, I have to work out 3 times a day. That's only sleeping 4 hours, and that's waking up at 4:30 and doing his first workout, and then taking his kids to school, coming back home, second workout, having lunch, third workout, and then being with his kids the rest of his day. But he committed to that suffering, and I believe that's why when he was on the court, he never got tired. He was able to push his limits. It's almost like breaking out of a jail cell, right? He was in this prison, and this prison was this lower self of him that could not be the best basketball player ever. So he had to push himself to basically get out of that prison. I know I did this at one point in my life, nowhere near the level of Kobe, and I could never do that, and I don't think I would ever want to do that. But when I was working at Starbucks, I would wake up at 3:30 in the morning and then clock in at 4:30, have work until 1, and then I would go to school. Then after school, no matter what, I forced myself to go to the gym. Because at this point in my life, the way I looked, I cared more about than anything because I used to be very overweight. And when I started seeing results, I got addicted to it and I kept wanting to push myself. And the habits and the routines that I learned from that, I've taken to everything else. So I was very scared to work full-time and go to school full-time because when I was at Starbucks, I was only working part-time and going to school part-time. So I had a lot more time to go to the gym. Yes, I was tired, but what I feared about when I committed to work full-time because I was getting older and had to pay rent and going to school full-time was that I wouldn't have time for the gym, or I'd be even more tired, or I wouldn't have time to study, or I wouldn't make time to study because I prioritized the gym. I actually flunked out of my freshman year of college because I prioritized the gym over everything and I didn't even have a job. So I, again, had a lot of limitations in my head because I haven't proven it to myself that I can break past those limitations. So when I committed to working full-time, going to school full-time, still going to the gym, and I actually ended up getting all A's and B's, I broke even another limitation. I almost got to another level in a video game. So you're grinding away at a video game, and eventually you keep grinding, and the higher you get, the more work you have to do. But then you reach that level and you feel so confident. I really think life is a video game. And the reason why people love video games is because there's this ascent, right? You start off really bad in the game, your character's not that good, you level them up, and then each level gets a little harder until you reach this grandmaster and you take down the grandmaster and you beat the game, but now it's onto another game. So for me, health and fitness was a game that I beat. I used to be very overweight and I went from fat to 6-pack in 7 months, like really fat to 6-pack in 7 months because I needed to almost prove myself that I can get a result in a very short amount of time. And that result, which was a 6-pack, I previously got close, but then I would self-sabotage. So I had to prove it to myself and break that limitation. And to finally get the six pack in a short amount of time because I wanted to do it by my 30th birthday, I only cheated on my diet 3 times. I only ate over in calories 3 times for a whole year, almost a whole year. It was from January to August. And I look back on that and I was like, man, there's probably some pro bodybuilders who aren't doing that. So I broke that limitation. And now I'm doing that with content creation. And I hate saying content creation. I more view myself as a teacher, and I'm doing that with teaching. So I woke up this morning at 3:40. I had work from 5 to 1 because I had a longer commute. And then I hung out with friends because I haven't seen friends in a while. I hung out with family, haven't seen family in a while. But I knew I had to come back home dead tired and at least make 4 or 5 TikToks and record 1 video, because my goal is 4 TikToks a day and 1 YouTube video every day. So no matter what, like Kobe's 3 workouts, I have to put in that work to break that limitation, to expand my consciousness. Whenever I'm feeling stressed out or I'm in the suffering and I'm feeling tired, that's when I practice meditation, like active meditation, breathing, relaxing, shifting my energy. And I'm basically retraining my nervous system, not to not get tired, but learn to deal with it better. And there's a spiritual teacher, if you haven't heard of him, he's probably the most popular in the world right now. His name is Sadhguru, and he talks about how he only needs like 3 or 4 hours of sleep because he's in a constant state of rest and peace and relaxation. So the more stressed your body is, the more it needs rest. Right? So think about when you are full of adrenaline and stressing about something, you feel tired. You may not physically be doing anything, but you feel tired. So the more you can learn to break through the limitation of sleep, the more awake you can be all day, every day, the more time you have in a day, and the more results you can achieve. I think what's very unhealthy about the spiritual community is it's very black or white. It's, oh, you should not want success. Success is ego. You shouldn't want it. You should just run away. This is why a lot of people escape the world and they go meditate in a cave. And yes, that works. You're going to be more peaceful because you're not in the world. But we live in a physical world. We have family. We have friends. We have desires that you can argue aren't the healthiest, but why not just see them through and just see what's at the end of the tunnel? Just as a game, right? Like you have a desire to play a video game. You're not judging yourself for playing a video game. The game is pointless. And yes, achieving a goal or being on a path is arguably pointless. But if it at least expands your consciousness and is a practice of acceptance, of accepting what is, if it's a path towards enlightenment, again, that's a very heavy, dense term with a bunch of associations to it. Enlightenment to me is actually becoming your highest self, and breaking through internal or physical limitations could be that way to be boundless. Think of yoga. Yoga was literally a form of spiritual practice that was supposed to help break the body of its limitation, to expand past the body. So you can use anything to induce suffering, to train yourself, to retrain your nervous system to be okay. Now, how can you do this? How you need to audit, you need to ask yourself, how can you implement this idea in your life? I'm telling you how I would do it. I've showed you how Kobe would do it. Elon Musk does this naturally. Like, he talks about how he works 16 hours, 17, 18 hours, misses his brother's wedding, and all he does is work. He's a man on a mission. He's in the suffering, but he doesn't care. He doesn't even view it as suffering because he enjoys it. So yeah, it'd be ideal if you could just find a path that you truly love. But I also think I'm also in a situation, you may be too, where you need to just pick a path. And by picking a path, you realize you are going to have some suffering, right? Like, I decided not to go to school to get my master's to become a therapist. So when I decided not to do that, I didn't pick that path. That path would have had suffering as well, right? Because I'm going to school, I'm working full time. And then if I were to go to school full time, not getting paid. I'm actually paying to go to school, sitting in class, studying in and out of class while still trying to go to the gym. There's going to be some suffering and stress there. I may have to give up the gym, right? And that's something I'm going to have to learn to be okay with. So what do I do instead of the gym? I would probably do some stretching or yoga. I've actually committed the next 3 months to not going to the gym on purpose. Why? I need to learn to be okay not caring so much about my body. And I'm going to do more yoga and stretching because I actually think that's what's going to be best for my body. I'm going to do more foam rolling, which I really hate, but I know that's going to be the best for my body. I'm going to do more fasting because I'm not as active. I want to train myself not to always need food. And if you audit how much time you waste eating food, you'd be really surprised. So I already fast and only eat once or twice a day, so I don't waste that much time, but a lot of people do. I know they spend so much time, they eat really slow or they eat really fast and they eat frequently. So maybe for you, it's like, okay, what would be something that I can force myself to basically detach from so I can learn to ground myself internally? This is I'm forgetting what it is now. Lent, right? They force you to give up something, so to learn how to ground yourself in suffering, to be okay with suffering. That's what fasting is all about. To be okay not needing food and to learn to push past the limitation of biological hunger. Oh, I mean, biologically, if we don't feel like we're going to be fed, we freak out. We actually are in a lot of anxiety. We think we're going to die. But if you learn to just be okay with that pain, just like any other pain, whether it's lifting weights or playing basketball, you basically break through that pain. The same with, again, sitting in a yoga pose. You're sitting in that pain and being okay with it. So you need to ask yourself, what situations can you put yourself in where you're sitting in a trigger of physical or emotional pain and learning to expand past it, learning to guide or shift your nervous system, learning to just be so dialed in on that end result that you're going to get there no matter what internal or external block is in your way. And that's what I loved about watching Kobe and even athletes in general. Like when Kobe wanted to get to the basket, he was going to get there no matter what. When he wanted to score from any point on the court, he was going to do it no matter what. If he was going to win a game, he will try and score 81 points. He's going to do no matter what. He would push himself in that game to the limits. It's like, how can I push myself even more? How can I get to the next level of life? How can I internally master my world so I can master the external world? If you master the internal world, the external world has to follow. If you don't master the internal, you are going to be run by the external. Pick a path. Whatever you think is actually going to cause you a healthy amount of suffering, and learn whatever you need to learn and do whatever you need to do to expand past that suffering so you become an enlightened being. You shed those layers of, I don't want to say weakness, that sounds harsh, but you shed those layers of softness and now you become hardened, but hardened in a peaceful way. You're so content because you know you can achieve a result. Like if you told Kobe, like, hey, you can't score, you're not good at basketball, he would just look at you and he'd be unreactive because he knows the truth. He knows what he's capable of. He has proof. Your brain needs proof, not promises. So you need to prove to yourself that you can expand past your level in the game right now. Again, I hope this helped, and until next time, peace.